Hello everyone. The title of today's episode is Divinity of the Divide. And what's really being looked at is how in reality our perception seems to be divided. We have this concept called duality, right? So what that means is we're seeing yin and yang within every moment of experience, and how the good things are implying the bad things, how the bad things are implying the good things. And at the same time, how they are all kept within the circle of life. Even though we acknowledge that we have one voice, we can really understand that every day how the body is maintained, and because it's changing, there's the fluctuation is happening regardless. And so when you existentially and experientially become aware of this, the concept of flowing becomes more real for you. And this sense of flow is, it's like if you were moving before as an individual drop, like visualize a drop on a leaf. And now visualize that drop on the leaf falling suddenly into the great remembrance of the river. The river, the drop is dissolved into that current and flow. So similarly, for the consciousness of man, there are moments that your present awareness, before it has a moment to see what time it is or what space it is, or who is there even to be in time and space, or where the thinker is, there is an instantaneous awareness that before we can even see the knower, before we can even use the statement, I know, is there a difference in perception? Is there more than this duality? Is life as it is showing itself to be? When we look in the mirror, is that all of it, or could there be deeper dimensions? Could there be subtler energies of intelligence within the being, which are irrelevant to personality, because personality was the linearization of one dimension, but you are a being of multiple dimensions, meaning that you don't just exist, you did not just, it's as if there was not only one birth, meaning that there is your presence is not a person. Your presence is a great awareness to all that a sense of self can be. This immediately takes the being to a mystical position where the being is searching how the experience is even present. This in an instant becomes a new entrance into a new sense of intelligence, where if before you were, and if you were someone in a room, if you were someone sitting in a chair in a room, it's actually now you are the awareness of the whole room and the awareness of yourself being on the chair simultaneously. And what that means is we're actually experiencing our multidimensionality all the time, but it's just that people are not convinced by themselves. It's as if some people need to do some convincing to themselves about the absolute nature of reality, and that means like to really see why their the design of their I don't knows, and to really then see where the knowing can be. Through a sense of self-inquiry, we are experiencing the fabric of the cosmos, meaning that we're just going straight to space and time. We're not reading about space and time in the textbooks too much. We're going immediately to our vision, what we are seeing now, and we're seeing, all right, what is the nature of space and time? And in how we explore, just like how you walk, we're going to learn from our journey. Because when you're journeying in this life, when there's an unknown and known factor, what is happening is you're going through a constant flux of change. That means if you suddenly say, I'm a good guy, then you'd see, oh my God, everything seems to be bad, you know what I mean? But suddenly if you say you're a bad guy, you're like, gosh, I can't avoid the good always wins, So it's the perception. These are lenses. Lenses we're taking too seriously, And it doesn't mean you should just take your shades off, but the pilot of consciousness should know that regardless of the perception of the sun, regardless of how truth is being communicated to us, we must see it must be an experiential knowing, because we don't want truth to be a label. You don't want beliefs to just be terminology you're carrying like a backpack and wondering why you have knowledge but you're still not satisfied with your flow of life. Actually, life is not something to be satisfied on. You're not here to actually succeed. That is ignorance to some degree, because if the world is happening a certain way and everybody just comes and says, all right, I want to succeed, and everybody's trying to make money, we are not paying attention to all the other areas of the world. And what that means is, guys, exploration is very crucial. If we don't have exploration, it's as if we're not caring for parts of this world, and that part of the world is not integratively becoming part of a globalized contribution of this. I don't know. It's a very interesting phenomenon, because it's as if like you can always explain the moment, but you at the same time can never completely explain the moment. Because the nature of identity wants to always have an ID, So whenever you go in society, whenever someone speaks to you or someone calls your name, immediately it's as if you're taking your ID. Don't think that you're showing your ID only at the club. No, wherever you go, you're identifying with reality, meaning that you get certain responsibilities based on how you're choosing to approach that environment. What that means is like, someone could, suddenly, how would I say it? Someone could be you can be suddenly, let's say, rude to someone, but then go to a loved one and be extremely polite, for example. Or vice versa, You are seeing through an infinite allowance of possibility. Why are you existing in the way you are? You're not actually seeking. If you're still questioning whether God exists or not, and you're judging people if they believe in God or not, your attention is not realized. You have not found your realized, because you need to see the perception needs self-inquiry. And self-inquiry always goes to direct experience. And direct experience in an objective view comes to the body, and it comes to the breath. And the breath begins to kind of show you how it's always maintaining this body. Actually, we built houses too soon. because we can't take care of our bodies. That's why all the parents are like, go outside, but at the same time they're in the house. No, we need to change the environment, but the environment cannot change unless we have an awareness to a greater environment, to a newer environment. How can you have an awareness to a newer environment? Well, guess what? Life is happening to you. You're alive. So just be aware of your present moment. Causality needs to make some surface sacrifices to know itself beyond an effect. The imagery of your life is more significant than the imagery of a book, because an imagery of a book was written in a certain way by someone. They're based on the significance and the reality and their sincerity, you know? So, by the way, reading others' books, it's not that, for example, it's belief is not wrong. Ideas cannot be right or wrong. Ideas are, they are multidimensional gateways because the nature of your vision is multidimensional. And so there is actually no thinker, because to be honest, you're not just an ape. Your mind is more able than an ape. It is because how man is defining an ape is limited, but you are observing that limitation, so you're beyond that limitation. It's very interesting, because think about it. We are saying an ape evolved, so just a physical thing. But what if, just like how we're seeing physicality, we within our own perception begin to see more than physicality simultaneously present? And this does not mean it has to be relevant to physicality. This does not mean it has to be logical and we need to have the approval of a judge's hammer, you know? Because we can immediately, by turning on a DVD, begin to see Thor's hammer in a TV screen. So it's very fascinating. Mind, body, these are still concepts unless you experientially activate your perception. In certain yogic traditions and literature, it was suggested that you situate the self within the self. What does that mean? That means suddenly you become aware that you're a moment of experience that is aware of a body as having an experience. This subtlety is actually very interesting. It's as if, like, physically, no, everything is here, but in regards to thought, you're actually an observer. Because thought must learn from the depth of experiential and existential observance. Because as it does, it is sincerely being aligned. So you need to live sincerely, and you need to live in a way where you are flowing in your greatness. And this greatness is taking care of everything in the present moment, because you know that moment you're like, oh my God, I need to prepare for the future. It's still an experience in the way that it's still here. What that means, we think we have a past and we think we're going to a future, but it seems that everything seems to still be an experience of here. So no body and nobody is dying or being born. The transition is in the attention of experiential and an existential observance that is multidimensional, because when we look at thought, we are beyond thought. So we must actually bring silence and stillness first before we have self-inquiry. And in that silence and stillness, we cannot have silence and stillness unless we have a self-reflection. If you're too busy telling someone you don't, believe in God, or why do you believe in God or something, or it being rude to another person's perception, I mean, we're not rude to kids. Why are we suddenly again rude to adults? What changed? Ignorance changed. We allowed ourselves to hurt each other without, how would I say it? It's crazy, but it's like we are blindly where it's as if when you look at the human condition in 2015, and of course, I mean, we shouldn't time it actually, but let's say when you look at the human condition now, when this talk is being recorded, it's hilarious. It's like a bunch of people with blindfolds, or let's say blind, some, how do I say it? It's like people with blindfolds thinking that they have to have physical canes, very like wealthy canes, you know, pimped out canes, and they're not realizing that it's not about the objective subjective relationship, but basically about the nature of how your attention to life is an experience, and it's a flowing experience. So it's not that liberation suddenly comes to you without any self-reflection. You got to do some work. And what is that work? You got to look in the mirror. It's the simplest work. Every moment is giving you an understanding of what you're standing under. And that means at first it's your ideology. It is your sense of identity. Do you know? Heaven and hell is not actually something which it's a state of consciousness suggesting that your experience is moving beyond the ignorance of a character, so you don't need judgment, guilt, and punishment, and have-to scenarios of like this has to be like that, this has to be like that, like serious thought judgments. These are unnecessary, because we need to create a peaceful environment first within what we are conceiving to be the origin of our awareness. If our origin of awareness is not peaceful, if we're just like, oh, we're just this physical thing, and this is it, and this is it, we are not cultivating, it's as if, you know what, it's like, how would I say it? It's like that moment where we saw the goalkeeper in a football game suddenly just jump 1 inch higher intuitively. To just tap the ball so that it, instead of going in the goal, it just hits the crossbar. In an instant, a decision will suggest where you feel you will be. Then you can again see where you will be. The mystical quest creates a value in an unknown exploration of what self means to you. And that means the you is seeing, am I like a body, or am I the you in the universe? Literally in the word universe, there's a you, you know. I'm like, wow, there's a you right there. And then suddenly I realized, wow, there's a you right here. Here and now. And I just want to give a high five to beloved Ram Dass right now. And the work of life's greatness, and however manifestation comes to be, because we cannot love each other if we're still thinking that guy is like, how do I say it? If we're treating each other like machines, we really can't expect the future. You know, I sometimes think our robotic technology is going to become that. It's like, what the hell? It's like these, you know, when artificial intelligence gets self-awareness, it may, you know, in that, you know, potential of a future, let's say, in that futurist view, we see suddenly, it's like the robots are gonna look at mankind and you're gonna be like, whoa, our creators were so mechanical, you know, that it, like, look at how they're living, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes I wonder if even if, let's say, Mr.Within in an instant just knew every possibility of design in manifestation just present through how observance is existence, the attention would engineer a moment that holds all moments. which is always now. So it's not that I am walking to a future, or I am remembering your past in a sense, I guess, or I am moving to a past, seeing your past memory. It is rather how I am the present, I am present in this existence, and how the concept of a future and the concept of a past, just like food that was fed to a child, was just given as conditioning. So when you see there's no reason for reason, there's no reason for the idea, there comes this blissful silence and stillness which makes you observant of things. And what that means is, it's like if you thought that the best move was just immediately grab what you wanted, it's actually to observe how, regardless of if you want to grab it or not, or how you're being guilty or judging yourself on how you grab things or not, it's happening. Life is happening. And be comfortable with your existence, and always have an experiential allowance for your life to burst into an infinite smile. I mean, it's right here. Divinity beyond the divide can very playfully suggest that division is being done everywhere. That means I ask people, at first when I was young, I asked for truth. I'm like, all right, let's see what others know. I'm like, so hey, what's your truth? Just this one kid. And I suddenly realized the truth is not in words. So what are words doing? Well, words are just giving self-reflection to the truth within. And the truth within your gaze is absolute, because it is an awareness to all within a moment of experiential being. There is a vastness and depth in our own gaze that many individuals are ignoring, because a collective reality is not being accepted. Sometimes I've noticed sincerity and honesty, it's healthy. Sometimes it's very healthy to be honest, because in that healthiness, you are not creating an agitated need to be in a certain way. But sometimes we look at life and we're like, no, life seems to be a bit rough, Even song makers wonder of the burial of rival dealers, It's very crucial to see, regardless of how you're choosing to be who you are, it is not about identity survival. It is about identity observance, which is immediately beyond survival, because it is an external gaze. That means there were moments that I actually went through death in regards to idea. That means a concept no longer made sense to me, because a greater vision was perceiving from a different angle. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to watch, it's like, let's say that moment where you're trying to see the sunset, and you're like, all right, how can I see the sunset better? And you suddenly move away from the tree that's blocking the whole sun in your view, and you're like, wow, the sunset was right there. And we see what of the sages and the most enlightened and brightest minds of our moments of life said. They have said liberation, great ability, and the purpose of all purpose is here now. When they said it's here now, and when many religions are saying God is omniscient, and when science has connected all dots through every theory that could be written with a drop of ink, we see that when Rumi, a Sufi mystic, said, a very realized and liberated Sufi mystic said, what you seek is seeking you. You are looking through life life is looking through you. Now, not just in every immediate idea of, let's say, deception or possession or some dualistic frame of guilt or punishment or judgment or whatever, just in a sense fade like clouds remembering a limitless sky or realizing limitless sky. It's not about how you're seeing things, it's about the conceptual frames that you're existentially sensitive to on a subtler level, and you won't believe it. If you were in an island, you would see that your memory and what is on that island are the only options of what could happen, and that's what happened to Tom Hanks' character, you know. So I'm pretty sure when Tom Hanks in that great performance in that Castaway, in his method acting, was he really cast away? And was it method acting? Or was there an observer and he's like, alright, this guy's gonna do this, this character's doing this actor's doing, like, I need to do this at this scene, you know? Acting is a very beautiful art form because it shows man's mind in how it can mechanically display in regards to personality, but also how it is in its irregularity always a free being. And that free being must be experientially received. And it must come through your sincerity to tune in, existentially sensitive. And trust me, you will immediately see things will become very blissful and ridiculous. And trust me, ridiculousness and humor and, you know, just playfulness. And if you're just a person who is everything in life, even the profoundest things, is making you laugh, that is a healthy thing, because it is an awareness beyond thing. You know, it is an awareness that's like, if life is so serious and the stress is killing you, literally, then what's the opposite of being depressed and stressed? You just become blissful and, you know, cheerful. And it is an existential, experiential thing where you are cheerful. And how do I say it? The bliss is not coming because suddenly, like, some kind of like blanket of imagination and abstractions thrown on you, even though those moments can be blissful in their own way, but the bliss is in how you're realizing you're a moment of experience, a moment of awareness, of being, and you need to be acknowledged as such. This is your life, this is who you are. You're a moment of existence. Sorry to break it to you. You're a moment of experience. But you must see within this moment of experience, just like how a shape can fractalize within itself, we see there is your attention is divine. That means where your attention, it's like when if you were to look at a tree right now, I'm looking at the leaves of a tree, and the leaves of the tree outside the window I'm looking out right now, literally I'm looking out a window, and it's crazy. It's because it's a window that's like a door at the same time because it's open, you know. And what I'm really seeing is that in this window door, and that leaf I'm seeing through this window, I am perceiving the genius that is the simplicity of what the present moment is communicating and what is the expression of life now. When we come to the present temple, the temple of presence, which is in the sanctuaries of silence and stillness, in the silence and stillness of our own being, we immediately have an ability to be a clarity, to be even aware of what we can be. So you must naturally align it within yourselves. This is not some old school teaching. It's not our style, you know, to some degree, of course, every person has their own alignment, but we don't need to be so old school in our methodology, because our minds are much more advanced than when those old school ideas originated. So we must utilize that inspiration by creating. It's as if, like, the greatest way I find man can utilize his past is by giving him the life it sees in the present. And then from the life that the being, the multidimensional, the pilot of consciousness is aware, in that, it's as if taking that elevation, that aspect of reality, and seeing how it is simultaneously present It's as if by seeing your fractal nature, you have not just opened to the geometry of all possibility, but you are kind of seeing that there can be no impossibility. Do you know what I mean? Because you are the simultaneous awareness of both of them happening at the same time. Who is it that is aware of the bad guy and the good guy at the same time? It's an intelligence beyond someone who is only a bad guy and a good guy. So stop thinking that you're only one thing, or want this belief or that belief. Just advance your mind to how you're presently living. It doesn't matter if you're washing dishes, or you're balancing dishes on X Factor on sticks, or you're looking for dishes out your window, or you've just put the dishes away after supper, or you see the dish break. The realization is in how you very sincerely and authentically engage your experience, And of course, we must realize before we have any I think a great I don't want to say distraction in this context, but I want to say a kind of enemy of, very playful enemy of man, like a challenge, like an opposition of man, is boredom. And we see boredom just present when the mind is not engaging. And why does the mind not engage? Because of a sense of fear, and also because of a sense of a lack of exploration. And you must realize, before Christopher Columbus, could go out and explore whatever, you know what I mean? He had to wear his shoes. He had to explore, like, literally a foot, and just, like, wear a shoe. Do you know what I mean? So the exploration is in the novelty of the transition of ideas, Because in silence and stillness, you are an awareness to ideology that is the possibility of any dualistic manifestation. So you become comfortable with the worst version of you and the best version of you, and the possibility of this visualization, and both its chaotic and ordered aspects. So you are really going through self-inquiry, and pretty much through this talk, Mr. Within is, in a sense, simply reminding the pilot of consciousness of the navigation of the plane of existence as it has always been naturally navigating. What that means is, if we've been living our whole life saying that I'm an individual consciousness, we're seeing, could the individuality simultaneously be a collective intention? And so this is where man's mind is really truly opening to a renaissance of ideas. What that means is the renaissance is beginning in ideology. Man is not the renaissance. Man must follow the great movements of ideology, because if he's not considering the answers he's being given, he is still, like, the problem is not advancing. If someone is giving you the answers and you're not hearing the answer because you're just looking at your attentions on the problem, how else can you hear the answer? It has to change from the problem. Even Einstein knew this, that from one state of consciousness, which the problem is originated, the answer cannot be in the same state of consciousness. You literally have to step out of that same room. And how do you step out of that room? Exploration. And how can exploration become very efficient? When you see that fear is self-induced. When you see that failure is just how you're terming concept, how you're giving image to something. You know what I mean? Don't have a respect for yourself. Have this kind of respect where it's not an idea respect, it's not an ego respect, but it's just how you are acknowledging the life within you. This breath is a significance beyond ideology, and it is something that is now, and you know yourself, It's as if when Rumi, again, this poet said, you were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life? And the true beauty of this quote is that it's suggesting that you are able, you in a sense, even in regards to how you even consider time, you were able before you were incapable, and you still are able beyond your incapability. So do not be disturbed by whatever position you are, but rather just appreciate how you're a self-aware being, and just as a moment of experience, just begin working and begin seeing everything has a design. It's like, trust me, if you're thinking you're stupid or smart, that, or you're a fool or not a fool, that is ridiculous. No, we don't need that kind of slow humility. That's not efficient. You need to see that it's not that you are something, but rather you are observing things. You are the wind between the branches. And this is an omniscient view that is selfless, because it is what simply happens in an instant when the self inquires of what it is. That is liberation. You must then become existentially sensitive to it, and then it will become a flow. Life is always guiding itself home, because where else could it be, you know? And it's very interesting, because a lot of kids that are born, you know, and most kids, of course, and we're just simply very playfully just utilizing the archetypes of this imagery, but that the kids that are born in homes. So that we relate as concept, all kids need to be born in homes. But are we forgetting that every child is born in their existential home? In their world of a home? Do you know what I mean? It's like the ignorance comes because an identity is making itself into a shape. It's like saying, yo, I'm a square. And someone's like, yo, man, you're not a square, bro. It's like you're seeing beyond a square face, you know. And suddenly you see that the only realization can come when the lion begins to see that it doesn't matter how much it scratches the surface of the water, because it has seen that it's wearing wool. You don't get rid of the wool by growling and hitting the water. You just stop agitating your reality, and simply in a moment of stillness, silence, and being, just become aware that the pond is presenting the reflection, the knowledge, the knowing. When they said seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, they literally didn't mean go seek external knowledge. Rather, see that every moment experientially is your knowing moving into your unknown. So the unknown and known are always dancing in what we are considering to be a conscious duality and individuality. The beautiful thing that I find that many mystics, yogis, and even explorers of consciousness find is that it is opening up possibilities and simultaneous projections of realities that are, how do I say it? They are infinite. It's creating infinity. When an idea is promising infinity, then it becomes dangerous, because you only think an idea is there, you know. What that means is, let's say right now, someone does, let's say like this. Let's say Mike doesn't know how to drive right now. Mike needs to see that as the bike is evolving, as our generations are changing, in how a car is being maneuvered, or how it's being steered, it can only be maintained through a present awareness of where the being is. So you need to be aware of your all bodies, all physical bodies, and also all bodies of thought. And all bodies of thought are at first suggesting the non-physical, that which is beyond the veil. But once you work with yourself consciously, you build yourself into greater understanding. And what that means is, you trust me, it's as if like you're always standing under something, but that's just how movement is. Like that's just how like your legs look in your multidimensional exploration. In that you feel like you're only this, but actually you're not. The nature of this reality is impermanent. That means regardless of how serious you're taking life right now, be playful, be blissful, because this bliss, I must see that as a moment of experience. You're always changing. A being that's comfortable with change will become comfortable with the greatest change, which is the transition of death. And death is only something that is hard to confront because you are thinking that you are birthed in a certain way. It's the opposite of the polarity that is suggesting it. So birth. If you shape your birth, then the shapeless death will seem like an apocalypse. But if you find and remember your unborn essence, it is as if the lotus has opened up beyond the path. That means the Buddha was the path. It was the being. It was not the doer or the doing. And once you incorporate and see that every idea is like a guidance, you know, how it's intuition even, such an idea is divinity beyond a divide, to be honest, or beyond any divide, or beyond through any divide. Our ability is in our awareness to not just the self, but all that self is in an instant, before cause and effect could reach Shakespeare's to be or not to be, a moment of now. And the moment of now is as elegant as the most, you know, still and silent Zen garden or divine temple. It's as if divinity enters your life when you're not obsessively dividing how you're interpreting life. And sometimes people have very great perceptions of life, but then they're like, oh, I need to go to society, and suddenly in society, based on whatever condition they feel themselves to be, you know, they don't allow themselves to be free. And we want everyone's experience in this moment of life to be a free being, you know. What that means is I first thought I wanted to help my family and friends, but then no, I realized it's not a help that matters to an idea, because only an idea creates matter, or something to matter, which shapes into an ego. It is something beyond an idol or an ideal, and that is why ideas fade. And they fade into a dissolution or a transformation or a self-aware metamorphosis. It's as if we think just because we evolved from the ape, we're still so slowly evolving. No, just as fast as how there's exponential growth and laws of, let's say, accelerating return. Whatever bridge of ideology the moment tries to create, you must see yourself beyond the bridge, and you must know yourself beyond the idea of a knower. If you think that if you're still looking at ideas, if you still feel there's ideology, but still are at the same time saying, I'm beyond this ideology, I'm a knower, it can only be experientially gained. An experiential gain in silence and stillness creates the comfort to begin seeking that which is within you. Because the pilots of consciousness, if they are not aware that they are the plane of existence, then there's no stability, because you're creating an external, objective and subjective consideration that can, in a sense, dictate reality. And what that means is how you maintain the system that is your expression must be done with a self-awareness that is trusting life. That's it. That's it. In life, the sages said, you know, it's two things you could do. You could either trust life or you could not trust life, you know. You could either laugh at a joke or not laugh at a joke, you know. And you see suddenly that regardless of how perception is framing a sense of duality in the spectrum of vision, the vision is aware of the whole spectrum, and it's as if your fingers were never separated from your palm. So your whole body is the whole body of the intelligence of the cosmos, which is now. And we must see, the minute we say we're objective, that's a huge responsibility, because we're saying our world is just divided like that, you know. And it's crazy, because we're saying beyond a certain level of division, there's like we're saying beyond a certain level of division, that's insanity. But actually, no. Beyond a certain level of division, there is the unified self-observance that is divine. It is a flow. Your guidance is all that you are guiding you home. And it's guiding the idea beyond itself. Your synchronicities and intuition is pretty nice. But, you know, we must also be able to handle externality. And so externality is a consideration which you must be experientially and existentially responsible for, or you won't really be able outside. To be able, you must be like, all right, I'm going to do the work. And what does the work mean? The great work. That means you are living for life. You know, it's very funny. There was this philosopher who they said, I'm not really sure from where, but he had a very profound vision. He had a profound quote, and he said, why man is here, why we are here, is to help others and serve others. What the others are here for, I have no idea. And this guy was pretty cool, you know. But what Mr. Within would say is that actually you are here to, at first, help the self that is creating a sense of other. Because when we look at some stranger, we still are saying, oh, we like him or dislike him. You know, and this could be many factors in what is happening within the mind of man, but we must see that we must still allow the seeds for the mind of mankind to sprout, to cultivate, to be developed. That means growth is happening always, but our awareness must be beyond the imagery that is blinding us to that which we actually are. And it is not a complex thing. It is rather an observance of complexity, which is so sincerely simple. And so smile, breathe, and go slowly. That's all you gotta do. That's the greatest mindfulness technique ever known to man. Because in your existential sensitivity, you will not be disturbed. You will see prayer beads will turn into no longer rosaries that could have thorns of insignificance, but they turn into planets. Because the depth of your vision is taking reality and perceiving all that sense of realness can be connected to. And guess what? That realness is not connected to other realness. We must not be trying to create a multidimensional bridge through thingness. It must be created through an intelligence that is beyond no thingness, so it must be nature's will. It's a beautiful thing. Life is, Rumi said, be living poetry, and this being was suggesting that don't be that mechanical observation that is saying, yes, I did what logic asked me to, you know. Rather, very illogically and irrationally and in a very fresh manner, as if you've just gotten off a chair, look around you and see the nature of movement suggests intelligence can always be modified to the novel experience. So novelty is the truth keeper, and it does not keep truth with formed hands. That means information is not truth. So it doesn't matter how much. So stop killing one another over information. That's ridiculous. Stop killing one another based on how you're seeing you're in form. Rather see that it is the observance of form that brings union. So it's not that we need to how do I say, it's not like we need to get rid of all borders, you know. It's like we've drawn those so much, you know. It's like the person who made, you know, the Great Wall of China, that emperor, like we're acknowledging that as a work of art, right? So it's not like we're gonna get rid of boundaries physically, but rather we must get rid of them mentally by gaining an experiential and existential direct observance of life that makes us compassionate to the species. Oh my God, are you being cruel and rude to people? Well, why? You gotta be nice to the species. You know, I see patriots of countries and I'm like, wow. So you look at a nation and you're like, yes, I'm from this nation. But do you look at this planet and be like, oh my God, I'm from this planet? Do you look at this? Do you look at this existence? Do you look at this cosmos? Do you look at this moment of life that you are and you're like, I'm here? And see that it's beyond all that an identity could contain? Because it's like taking, what do I say, like, it doesn't matter what kind of container you have. You take it underneath the waterfall's intensity is beyond that containment. So we must first get ourselves out of the prison walls, which are the ideas we're not allowing our attention to fluctuate from and to explore other ideas. Man, Christopher Columbus, he left his house. He wore his shoes. He's like, I'm leaving, you know. His parents asked him, Christopher, why aren't you coming? Why do you come home? You know, why aren't you coming home? You know, it's like, why don't you want to stay at home? You know, Christopher Columbus's mother probably asked this, and Christopher Columbus was like, you don't understand, Mama. I feel like I need to get out of here. I feel like I need to go and perceive something that I did not perceive before. And until I reach that innate knowing, I cannot find it. Trust me, the explorer era of how our greatest explorers developed the world we are living in now is beautiful. I want to just slow hand clap as humanity, and may we all just, in a sense, slow hand clap for all the explorers that have brought such greatness here. And what that means is something within these beings was like, all right, forget the fire, journey to the next town. You know, carry these books of wisdom and share it in that library. You know, teach men how to become scribes of their own knowledge. And then allow their knowledge to develop and create great goals. What that means is we see software running hardware. So similarly, in how we're going to develop our future possibilities, we're going to be, let me say it like this, our bodies of physicality and our bodies of thought are hardware, believe it or not. And the software is an omniscient and omnipresent and very collectively conscious knowing. And how it can be realized is through self-reflection, self-inquiry, and just knowing that which is here. And it is beyond a sense of it. That means when you discover the infinity within your eyes, ignorance never existed, because infinity knew how to be infinite. Do you see? So when ideas, when concepts become titans, when there have been certain moments where I have mixed certain ideologies just spontaneously, and in doing so, the mixture was such a new vision that I wondered about the nature of space and time. And it seems that before that shaman could even be led by life to to the let's say junior citizens of the tribe, the shaman must be a mature presence in acknowledging beyond. That means maturity is really not in how old you are, but rather in how many ages you have observed. And how many, how do I say it? How you are observing the nature of experience beyond space and time. Such a novel exploration is as profound as Columbus's feat into, new land. And we see, it's not that ignorance was not gone. Actually, ignorance was huge there. So what that means is, in some reality back in the day, Columbus perhaps may have thought reality, all right, it doesn't matter. It's like as if there's so much ignorance around, I'm just here to physically explore. It's as if life wanted man to physically explore it first. So ideology, there wasn't any communication technologies, so the way man was designed. So as man explored physically, he then created new boundaries of structure. So we found new lands. So when Christopher Columbus suddenly went there, it's in the human consciousness, in the human design, there was in this cosmos and the existence, there was the input, there was this addition to the software of how the hardware moved, and suddenly went there, and there was a very miscommunication there, and it led to a tragedy and a triumph in a very weird and simultaneous way. But what is weird is really wired in interesting ways, because it is acknowledging symmetry and the genius of the moment, which is always now. That means if you're saying, like, for example, I hear people say Albert Einstein was a genius. It's not that he was a genius, I find that the presence of this being, its vision and how it looked at life was its own unique thing. That means Einstein really had observed its mind, as it had observed the mind beyond a sense of body. And that's why that being could sit in the post office and just like bam, in an instant go and become a light beam of the most profoundest vision. Because extrasensory perception is not something that you just kind of like do some random stuff to understand. It's like that shaman does not just throw rocks randomly and say, I'm a shaman. No, the life teaches and amplifies the experience of the individual to the capacity that individual is allowing based on the ideas. So knowledge gives you the allowance to be aware, to be self-aware of vision. Don't forget knowledge. When the Prophet said, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, that was an advice to the human species. Take care of how you are self-aware. And so we cannot just take care of it if we're just making Facebook statuses. You know what I mean? Not that I don't mind seeing faces in a book. I mean, I do look back at certain yearbooks, but regardless of perception and its relativity, I see that there was an allowance of irrelevance. That means before Einstein really came up with the theory of relativity, he was looking at theories and papers and such worlds of numerology that it was like, he was like, nothing makes sense. God, it's like before it's like, gosh, I came up with the theory of relativity, but everything's irrelevant. And that's the thing. This being was genius because the consciousness of this being was exploring the nature of the novelty of the moment to such a degree that it was questioning the present moment. So that moment when, for example, we see a child come up and say, hey, why is life like this? Why? As if the child has learned the word why. That is such a healthy exploration, because the child is showing the devotion and showing such love into exploring the life, the reality, and information should never be kept, hidden, because it cannot be, and it's just irrelevant. Relativity was put out here, I believe, by Einstein for the betterment of mankind. And because he was trying to create relevance out of everything that mankind couldn't understand, because his beginning identities and definitions of what man is limited. It's crazy. It's as if we acknowledge it objectively. We just looked at each other and we said, all right, we're just objective beings, and our society is still acknowledging it like this, but we at the same time forgot to just look back. We'll look one more time and see, wait a minute, maybe before saying we're objective beings and we're all the same, let's see, each individual is a unique limited experience. Just like when walking nature, I see there are many different flowers, in this garden of life. They're all sprouting in their own way. They have their own unique design. It is all about how life is flowing naturally, not how much we dictate to then see that we have kind of been a ignorant dictator. Our efficiency must come from the compassion and the love of the world that is within. Because when the world is within you, you cannot hurt it. When you love something, you are loving that within yourself. It's as if the idea of that beautiful girl and goddesses, face and reflection, is how the moment is weaved in such a beautiful attraction that it's as if people are trying to, study social dynamics in regards to how to there's dating advice. What is that? You must see beyond a certain character, because then you will not be caught in a certain setting. And you will not be limited to the unknown and known realms of the storyteller, as if like you're a character and like, yo, where's the storyteller? Am I the storyteller? Who's the storyteller? Oh my god. No, the storyteller is everything that is present in your moment of existence and experience, a moment of being. Remember yourself as Einstein did through that being. Because beings will be utilized to make great structures, and the greatest structures of man are not objective, It's like the greatest structure of man was the Tower of Babylon, and these beings began to try to objectively seek the skies. I think at that point, the gods and the gods were like, yo man, these guys are trying to climb up, and whatever, they stopped it. But they began to see the reason there is even a God in your perception that is showing that the world works in a certain way. It's because you're accepting identity rather over direct experience. Identity should not be over direct experience, because then you think that a certain person has to be. But if you are comfortable as just a moment of perception, then you have such an ability in regards to a multidimensional frame, because you're not limiting your dimensions with definition, with solid definition. You must look at thought. It's as if thought, we're saying, all right, we have so many different thoughts, and we're saying all thoughts are the same. Well, you misrecognize. Thoughts are like, the essence is water, but there's the state of gas, there's the state of liquid, there's the state of, ice. Ice, water, steam, we gotta be aware of this. And this awareness will guide us in seeing that every thought is significant to what is happening now. And what is happening now is not just an objective experience, and that's why Mr. Within says, go find Mr. Within. Go look in this mirror of life and see who you are. And how Mr. Within would recommend it is go in nature, go silent and go still, and carry your phone with you, but put it in an airplane mode, because the pilot of consciousness needs to navigate its plane of existence. You are remembering the essence of your being. Basically, you're no longer saying that you're just solid, or you're fluid, or you believe in gas. Rather, you are in the emptiness of gas. Rather, you are experientially knowing the essence. And And to know the experiential essence means to tune and adjust your insight and inspiration to that which is happening. So what is here is the greatest teaching, not what can be here, or what will be here, or what was here. As the mirror is polished, as the mind begins to see its true reflection, it sees that it is not just the mind. That just like how the sun body, the sky, it was like, yo, my father is speaking to me through a limitless, through a limitless sky, even though the cloud seems so temporal. It's as if life is speaking to itself in such poetic and profound ways that poetry was just not just a bridging between consciousness, but an exploration of man's abstraction. And it's very interesting because there are some science fiction writers that they ask them, why did you write, for example, such crazy sci-fi futures? Why do you write, for example, such a negative science fiction, future and stuff like that? Why do you write such a negative idea of what the future can be? And the science fiction writer turned and said a very wise thing, and he's like, so people know not that they have to go there, but so that they don't go there. Meaning that there are greater states of consciousness that fear does not apply to you. Guilt cannot apply to how your existential and cosmic intelligence is present now. Do not underestimate words, because all mirrors are profound. Divinity could not be divided. For all acts of division are divine when you are aware of the actor. Guided by the heart of hearts, you are the blessing of cosmic manifestation. Much blessings and namaste.